a memo out that I missed that we were just all going to go crazy at the start? Way to go, Austin. Way to go, you dumb. Way to go. What a stupid God. He just gave it to him. I just wanted that, man.
And what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Historic Hot Laps. I'm your host, Alex Daniels. We took a week off for Easter. We've got a lot of stuff to cover, so let's jump right into it. We had F1 Saudi Grand Prix. Crazy stuff in this qualifying session. Q1, Albon had a nice graze against the wall. Bortatello takes a spin, brings out the yellow. Hajar, who'd been making a lot of good runs, he misses the top 10 in Q2. Q3, we saw Lando Norris hit the wall, destroying the left front of his McLaren, which really threw off his whole race, probably, when you look at the overall results. Pole position was wild, back and forth. Verstappen, then Lawson, then Piastri, then Verstappen again, taking the pole in the closing seconds away from McLaren. Honestly, probably one of the most exciting qualifying sessions, definitely of this season, probably of the last couple years. Just pretty awesome to see. Going into the race, Oscar Piastri from McLaren, he got the victory on that one, marking his third win of the season, taking the lead in the Drivers' Championship at the same time. Verstappen initially led the race, coming from that pole position, but received a 5-second penalty for cutting the apex of the first corner. This allowed Piastri to take the lead. Charles Leclerc also secured a third-place victory for Ferrari, so that was good for that team. And that's his first podium of the season, oddly enough, after the good run he had following the second half of the season last year. It's kind of crazy. That's the first time he's been on podium so far this year, but he also had some other notable stuff, including Lando Norris finishing fourth despite his P10 start from his qualifying crash. We all know that Lando probably would have been up front had he not pushed the limits too far and had to do a car repair and switch chassis. But also George Russell and Kimi Antonelli finished 5th and 6th, kind of pairing up for Mercedes there, which is good points for the team, for the constructors, so that's good. Early collision between Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda. That triggered the safety car just right out of the gate. But overall, like we said, Piastri clinched victory for McLaren. His third win of the season, so pretty cool to see. Obviously, McLaren picking up where they left off last year and just getting it done. Moving over from there, like I said, we got a couple weeks worth of stuff to cover here. NASCAR had some series at Rockingham. We didn't see the Cup Series there, but we did see some good stuff. We had trucks and Xfinity in Rockingham last week. So covering the Truck Series race on Friday night, Stage 1, Lane Riggs took the lead away from Jake Garcia with 2 laps left in the stage and gets the win. First career stage win for Lane Riggs at a track we haven't been to in years. Super cool to see. He probably loves that place now. Stage 2, Lane Riggs held everyone off for another stage win. Back-to-back stage wins, so his first 2 coming from Rockingham. Stage 3, we saw Majeski hit the wall really hard. So much so they had to do some repair on the retaining wall before they could continue racing. Brought out the red flag, really killed the momentum on stuff. Luckily, Majeski was all right. After we got going again, we saw Friesen and Gray get mixed up, collected a couple more really hard. A lot of hard hits out there. All drivers were all right, though, so that's good news. Thank you to the safety equipment and the track team for all that. We saw a good shakeup in the field with fuel strategy after all these red flags and cautions. Became a fuel game with no other cautions. Almost all the trucks needed fuel. One of them played it out better than the rest, though. Tyler Ankrum got the win. This is his first win since Kentucky in 2019, so that was 130 races ago. Round of applause to him and the team. We know we covered him a couple weeks ago and how frustrated he was in his performance lately and as the team's performance and everything else. So great to see that. Moving over to the Xfinity at Rockingham, Stage 1 had an interesting play. We saw Catherine Legg get caught up in a move by William Swalich. Unfortunately, this also caught up Casey Kane, who was making his debut. First time he'd been in the car since 2018. Got some front end damage in the incident. Didn't take him out of the race, but definitely screwed it up. This late caution brought out a shootout for 2 laps left to end Stage 1. Sanchez, who stayed out on old tires, moving his position up, got himself a stage win. Definitely took the stage win over the pit strategy for the race win on that one. Stage 2, more cautions, brought out another 4-lap shootout at the end. Dean Thompson made a strategy call that stayed out and got his track position, claiming a Stage 2 win and his first career stage win in Xfinity for Dean Thompson. So congrats to that. Final stage, tons and tons of cautions. This was a wreck fest. A lot of shakeups with the restarts. Teams pushing fuel levels farther than they could go. into overtime. We saw 5 overtimes total. Finally get to the end of it, and we see Jesse Love get the win. However, that was short-lived as there was some trailing arm tricks of the trade that were found by NASCAR post-win, disqualifying Jesse Love and passing the win to Sammy Smith over there at Junior Motorsports, who was second at the time. So interesting finish on that one. So that was a couple weeks ago, the Easter weekend. So let's dive into this last week at Talladega. So NASCAR Dega, we had Xfinity and Cup. Since we just covered the Xfinity, let's jump right into that. Stage 1, Jesse Love and RCR at Talladega once again show their speed. The RCR program at drafting tracks is wild. They do such a great job over there. I don't know what they do specifically, but they've definitely got it figured out. Stage 2 ends up being another RCR stage win as Austin Hill swaps spots with Jesse Love at the end, getting the Stage 2 win. They were still first and second. Then we go into Stage 3, was ramping up as, the energy changes in the pack racing. Eric Amarola made a huge mistake, causing a big mid-pack pileup. Unfortunately, it was Catherine Legg, once again, who was doing pretty well for the day, and she got tied up in that. Again, 2 races in a row, and I'll say it, she was not at fault on either of those. She was wrecked out both times and then gets the negative press that she's in the way and slow and all this stuff. And she was running really good at Talladega. Somehow someone will try to blame her because she's female and she's new in the sport, right? But we'll support her here. She was definitely not in the wrong. She was just completely cut off by Amarola. She had a fender out on him, probably even a door, to be honest. He just went crazy. So yeah, just an untimely, uncommon mistake from him there. I don't know, just an interesting thing. But moving on from there, last 10 laps were pretty awesome. Lots of lead changes. Nick Sanchez was the rookie in the fight. Zilich got a huge run off the bottom, taking the lead with only a few laps to go. Unfortunately, as it goes, Zilich was punted by Jesse Love when the white flag was coming out, and it was a whole mess. But Austin Hill determined to be the winner at the end of it. It was a tough place for NASCAR, obviously, making that call. But Zilich, being a little banged up, is actually not going to race this weekend. He's got to fill in with Kyle Larson. Right, moving over to the Cup race. Start off worth mentioning that Zane Smith qualified in the pole position for the first time in his Cup career, so congrats to him on that. Stage 1 had a bad wreck for Christopher Bell, led to a short finish on the stage. Kyle Larson ended up moving way up front and getting the stage win. He's getting better and better at those drafting tracks, that's for sure. Stage 2 had a lot of shakeups. Bubba Wallace got the stage win on that one with a bunch of drama between the Penske teammates and Cindric and Logano. Basically, Cindric was trying to not punt Logano and wreck his whole day. Ends up giving a little bit of a push to Bubba. Unintentionally, it was more to just not cause a wreck with his teammate, but then Logano went off the rails and on the radio, and his comments and everything were pretty wild. But overall, the finish Talladega was not all that exciting. It was a decent race for what it was. We didn't see a lot of damaged cars, which was nice, but there was a lot of manufacturers trying to line up with each other, but it just didn't really line out. We saw Austin Cindric be in the right place at the right time. He gets the win. Ryan Preece comes in second, although that team who needed some good stuff and needed a podium finish, it didn't last long, as him and Joey Logano were both disqualified in post-race inspections for different things, but they saw different things happen there. But just overall, with the penalties from Ryan Preece and Joey Logano, Kyle Larson ends up getting the second place finish. Along with the stage win, he secured even more points for the playoffs. He might have had the best day overall. I can't remember. I know Bubba Wallace was like third highest in points for the day, which was good for 23-11 team. Yeah, with the drama between Logano and Cindric, I'm sure the post-race debrief at Team Penske was quite interesting. Moving on from there, let's talk about Silver Crown cars. USAC Silver Crown in Toledo. Pretty awesome. We saw a pretty dominating performance from Justin Grant. Led every single lap, full green flag race. I know a lot of people, that's probably not real exciting, but it was a good race. I saw a lot of mid-pack battles, a lot of things happening, but Justin Grant just was on his own rails on that one. He was just unstoppable. So congrats to him.
Oh yeah, it's incredible to pick up a win here at Toledo Speedway and the Raleigh Beal Classic, nonetheless, for Ron Himmelgarn. He's been a great supporter of my career. He's let me drive this number 91 for 8-9 years now, and man, I can't thank NOS Energy Drink, Super Fitness, Himmelgarn Enterprises, G&G Race Fuels, everybody that makes it possible for me to drive this car. Dennis LaCava works his tail off. He's super meticulous. Jason helps out, and PK, my buddy Spottin', and it's just it's awesome. I really felt like I went to work this winter on the pavement stuff, and I bet I've watched Cody run over the winter probably 5,000 laps around Toledo, and just tried to really study and get serious about this pavement stuff, and I'm just super glad it paid off. And
moving over to World of Outlaws, we had World of Outlaws at Knoxville. We saw all the players in the main on this one. We even saw Kyle Larson make his appearance in this 25-lap shootout. In the end, Rico Abreu gets the victory, holding everybody off, holding strong, showing that he's on his way to another good points battle for a championship.
I mean, I know someone was coming, so I'm not making friends on the racetrack, that's for sure. I just appreciate Ricky Warner, just his critical thinking, thoughtfulness, and just execution on this race car, and Zach and Brady. We put these packages together and come here and just to get to race against the best guys in the business. So,
And since we're covering multiple weekends, we also had World of Outlaws again this last week. Jacksonville on Friday night and Tri-State Speedway on Saturday. Jacksonville race was pretty exciting. Kyle Larson ends up getting the victory on that one, starting 6th and worked his way up to the front. He took the lead from Carson Macedo around lap 16, maintained it despite multiple cautions through the race. Larson's win is his 3rd victory in 6 races this year. Brady Bacon finished 2nd, showing that he also had a lot of speed through the night, but once again, Kyle Larson doing what Kyle Larson does.
For what Kyle Larson likes to do, yes, that was a lot of fun. It was a super challenging racetrack, kind of all night. I was just waiting for the, above the cushion in 3 and 4 to get loosened up, and it barely did, but yeah, after cautions, I could kind of rip above it in 3 and 4 really well, and just wanted to stay committed to it, just to try and clean it off up there as much as I could before I caught traffic. And I felt like that kind of allowed me to get by lappers a little easier because I could have such a run down the front stretch. So yeah, just great car, great race, all that. So thanks all the partners on here. It's always fun to get to race 57, especially on a small bull ring like this. So.
Moving over to Tri-State Speedway, it was a pretty exciting race. David Gravel clinched the victory on that one. He was battling with Carson Macedo. Gravel took the lead around lap 18, held off Macedo and Brad Sweet, even though there was several restarts where it was looking like he was going to lose that spot. This is Gravel's 4th win of the season.
Oh man, I wasn't really enjoying the restarts there at the end. Buddy almost had me cleared a couple times, so I just moved it down there. I figured it would be hard for him to go around me, so I just moved it down. But yeah, solid night. Drew the one, quick time, won the heat, won the dash, won the feature. So first one to pull in the pits too, so good day.
Just overall dominating performances by a lot of these guys. Just super exciting to see. But that wraps up a lot of our racing recap for the last couple weeks, taking the old Easter break off. So let's move forward from here. Not a ton of news on this one, but we'll cover what we do know. IndyCar news appears we may actually see a little more reality to the Mexico event we keep hearing about. ESPN Mexico is reporting the fact that IndyCar is in talks with event organizers for a 2026 race, to which Pato O'Ward was quoted saying, "Once I get my race in Mexico, I'm never going back to the F1 paddock," which is very strong feelings of how much he wants his home country race in his series. So with his support and the way the promoters work, I feel like we'll see something really good come of that. So stay tuned for more on that. Moving over to NASCAR, biggest story coming out that everyone's talking about right now is Rodney Childress and Spire parting ways after the first few races of the season. It seems the combination just wasn't going to work out to its full potential. Sometimes this just happens. I feel like this is going to be a loss for Spire more than it is for Rodney, but we'll see Rodney in some other capacity in NASCAR this year with another team, whether it be Xfinity, trucks, whatever. But he's a very hands-on type of crew chief. He is getting older. He's not, going to be quite as physical with the cars. And in Cup, there's not a whole lot you can do. You can make some other stuff happen in Xfinity and trucks maybe, but I don't know. Pretty interesting to see, and I'm curious if we'll see a change in Spire performance after this. And the last little piece of thing we've got for Formula One news, GM and the newly founded Cadillac F1 team have been approved for GM to be a power source supplier in the FIA world. So basically what that means is FIA certification on their power program So GM can make its own engines, right? They're not going to have to release a Renault or something like that. So, or, McLaren or Mercedes or whatever a lot of these teams are doing now, they can become their own supplier of engines. Whether or not they'll do that on the first season is hard to say. They still have a lot of time for development, so it is very possible, but we'll see what happens. All right. So we've got part 2 of our Lotus history segment, whatever you want to call it. We left off at the end of the 1970s, so let's finish it off here. Going into Team Lotus Part 2 in the 1980s. After Chapman's death, the racing team was continued by his widow, Hazel Chapman, and managed by Peter Warr. A series of F1 designs proved unsuccessful since then. Midway through 1983, Lotus hired French designer Gerard Durocher, and in 5 weeks he built the Renault turbo-powered 94T model. A switch to Goodyear tires in 1984 enabled Elio de Angelis to finish third in the World Championship, putting Lotus back on the map a little bit. They didn't win any races, but they had enough good solid finishes that they ended up third in the championship. They also finished third in the Constructors' Championship that year. Nigel Mansell departed at the end of the year, and the team hired Ayrton Senna. As we all know that name, things are going to get good for Lotus here for a bit. The Lotus 97Ts scored victories with De Angelis at Imola and Senna in Portugal and Belgium. The team, although it had now won 3 races instead of none, lost third in the Constructors' Championship to Williams, who beat them with overall 4 wins. Senna scored 8 pole positions with 2 wins in Spain and Detroit in 1986, driving the Lotus 98T. Lotus ended up regaining its spot in the Constructors' Championship, then passing Ferrari. At the end of the year, the team lost its longtime backing from John Player and Sons and found new sponsorship with Camel. Again, I'm going to say it, tobacco sponsorships in racing were the coolest era to be in. Senna's skills attracted a whole lot of attention from Honda Motor Company. Lotus agreed to run Satoru Nagajima as a second driver. A deal for engines was agreed on, giving them a new power plant and a new design in the 99T, which featured a different suspension design. But Senna was only able to win just twice in that model, Monaco and Detroit. Team again finished third in the Constructors' Championship, and again Williams outshined them, and so did McLaren. But they did finish ahead of Ferrari that time. We saw Senna move to McLaren in 1988, and Lotus signed another countryman from Brazil and world champion Nelson Piquet from Williams. The team still managed to get 4th that year in the Constructors' Championship, although again not having any wins. Even with their Honda power in 1988, they saw that Lotus was going to need more than that to make a win. 1988 was the year that McLaren dominated, with Senna and Prost winning 15 of 16 races that season. Not only did they dominated using the exact same engine platform that Lotus was using, which was a bit unfortunate, being that the best result Lotus had was 3rd place. So this moves us on to the 1990s. 1990, we saw some of the best sounding engines in Formula One. The Lamborghini V12 engine was the new power for Lotus, and you had Derek Warwick and Martin Donnelly hired to drive. However, once again, Lotus struggled, did not find very much success, with some of their best finishes being 6th in the Canadian Grand Prix and 5th in the Hungarian Grand Prix. There was a violent accident at Jerez where Donnelly was nearly killed. At the end of the year, Camel withdrew their sponsorship from the team and unfortunately saw more loss of sponsorship and money there. Former Lotus employees Peter Collins and Peter Wright organized to take over the team from the Chapman family, and a new Team Lotus was launched in 1991, with Mika Häkkinen and Julian Bailey being the assigned drivers to drive the Lotus 102B chassis with Judd engine. At the 1991 San Marino Grand Prix, the team scored its first double points finish since 1988, with Häkkinen in 5th and Bailey in 6th. Despite all this effort, Bailey was replaced by Johnny Herbert for the remainder of the season. Lotus then went to Ford HP V8 engines the following year in the Lotus 107 design, which was designed by Chris Murphy. The team was short on money, and this kind of affected the performance of the car, but they were able to score 11 points that year, including 2 4th-place finishes in France and Hungary, while their second car, that Herbert, he scored 2 6th-place finishes in South Africa Grand Prix and the French Grand Prix. The team finished 5th in the Constructors' Championship, and they had a highest place of 8th in the Drivers' Championship. There was a lot of back and forth with a lot of drivers through the 1993 season. The team scored only 12 points, finishing 6th in the Constructors' Championship. There was a whole lot going on there. A lot of back and forth on drivers. No real big names, just fill-ins and things like that as they were trying to get their stuff figured out. The team obviously struggling with sponsorship, struggling with performance. The debts started to overtake the team as a whole. They were trying to develop a new car called the Lotus 107 for the 94 season. They gambled on it using the Mugen Honda engine. There was a big struggle in performance, and they ended up changing the car once again to the Lotus 109 about 5 races into the 94 season. But then they were running multiple chassis because they only had one car developed, so they had a 107 and a 109 going at the same time in the same season, which is a huge strain on development and on the team to try to keep things straight. They did see a little bit of success with that 109 chassis as they qualified 4th in the Italian Grand Prix, and they felt a lot more comfortable in the cars after that. But they did get in some toss-ups with some other drivers on track, kind of ruining their race there. Later in 1994, an administrative order was made in respect of the company, which wound up in court, trying to protect them from the creditors and the debt that they had. Basically, the European way of filing bankruptcy. The company was deficient about 12 million English pounds at the time, and the team was forfeited and debts were spread amongst the team owners. At the end of the 94 season, with all this going on and the bankruptcies and everything else, the team had been sold to David Hunt, who was the brother of James Hunt, who was in 1976 Formula One World Champion. There wasn't a whole lot Hunt could do. It was a little too late, but he was definitely trying to keep the team alive. They were in process of designing the Lotus 112 design when, in December of 94, everything was halted, staff was laid off. It was in February of 1995 that Hunt announced its alliance with Pacific Grand Prix, who is also based in Norfolk in the United Kingdom, basically taking the Lotus assets and combining teams referred to as the Pacific Team Lotus, and their car would feature the green Lotus logo and accents, pretty much ending out any kind of success from there. We move forward to 2010, decade and a half later, after we saw the collapse of the Lotus racing team. It was 2009 when the FIA announced they had the intention to do a budget limited championship in 2010. Obviously, the economy was struggling worldwide. We had all kinds of issues. They were trying to keep the racing going, so Lightspeed acquired the right to submit an entry under the Lotus name. Lotus Cars, however, which was the sister company of the original Team Lotus, distanced itself and announced that it would protect its name if necessary and everything else, showing that it wanted no part in what was going on with this Formula One adventure again. This became a giant legal battle to which at the very end of it, Lotus Racing's Tony Fernandez had acquired the name rights from Team Lotus from David Hunt, which made it an official rebirth of Team Lotus in Formula One. They were renamed Lotus Renault GP, which was the successor to the Renault F1 team. This was a strategic alliance made out for the 2011 season, and this just kept going back and forth in the battle of courts and everything else. But really, the court battle wasn't worth the efforts. In the end of it, by 2012, Lotus Renault GP was given the rights to the Lotus name, and it was renamed Lotus F1. Fernandez carried the team for 4 seasons, and then it returned to the Renault name after that. So yeah, the final couple decades, not great for the team. No success in championships, anything like that. Just a lot of legal battles and just a lot of murky, ugly stuff. But when you go under with 12 million in debt, and however the court system works over there, whatever it may be, just not a great look overall for anybody. But that's kind of how it ended, unfortunately. I do want to list some notable drivers over the years. You had Jim Clark drive for Lotus, Graham Hill, Jochen Rindt, Emerson Fittipaldi, Mario Andretti, Ronnie Peterson, Jackie Ick, Gunnar Nilsson, Carlos Rudeman, Nigel Mansell, Elio De Angelis, Ayrton Senna, Johnny Dumfries, Nelson Piquet, Mika Häkkinen, Johnny Herbert, Alessandro Zanardi, and the list goes on and on with all the other drivers that weren't so notable, but still gave their time to Lotus. Overall stats, they entered 491 races, and 489 of those they did start. So only 2 of them they did not start that they entered. They ran engines from Climax, BRM, Ford, Pratt & Whitney, Renault, Honda, Judd, Lamborghini, Mugen Honda, just all kinds of different trials. They did have 7 total Constructors' Championships over the years, obviously in the early days that we talked about in part 1 of our episode, but 1963, 1965, 1968, 1970, 72, 73, and 78. Driver Championships in 63, 65, 68, 70, 72, and 78. Those were the golden years for Lotus. Race victories, overall they had 74 victories, 165 podiums, and 102 pole positions. So, not the strongest run when you look at it over the course of that time frame, but a stronger run nonetheless. Early days, the 60s and 70s were the heyday for Lotus in Formula One. And, obviously the driver names that were associated with them too were pretty wild, with Mario Andretti, Jim Clark, and all those guys. So overall, that wraps it up for that. Once again, appreciate listens. Please share, like, subscribe. Do all the good stuff out there. We're on most of the social media, YouTube channel. Check everything out. Again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Stay safe.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Don't forget to follow us at Historic Hot Laps on X and all your other social platforms for the latest updates and sneak peeks into upcoming episodes. You can reach out to us directly at historichotlaps@gmail.com. Send us your feedback, questions, comments, opinions, and additional subject matter you'd like us to cover. Thanks for tuning in.